Did the state drop the ball not once but twice on the first day of trial for Sarah Boone? We're going to go over some of the key evidence that was brought in as well as witness testimony. So with opening statements today, we got to hear from the defense and the state, but we now know 100% that Sarah Boone is taking the stand. Her defense attorney, James Owen, said it right there in the opening. He also used interesting wording, saying that the suitcase was used to block an attack. I think he's trying to make it seem like Jorge would have been angry, so she didn't want to let him out. That was her protecting herself. But I have said many times, and I still maintain this, but if you listen to him on that video recording, he doesn't sound mad at all. If I was him in that situation, I would be freaking out. I would be yelling, I'd be screaming and trying to get out and just panic, right? He wasn't like that at all. I don't know how they're going to try to say that that correlates together, because even in his tone of voice, there was nothing there of anger or aggression. The first person to take the witness stand was George's younger brother, Juan Torres. He detailed a conversation that he had had with George on the phone when Sarah was in the background screaming. I thought it was a good first witness for the state because they could detail how Sarah was, going off the handle, causing all these issues, losing control, even so there's other people around or on the phone. But there was one thing that I really felt like the state missed out on. So instead of going back and taking another recross, the state said that they were completely done asking him questions, and it was actually the defense that asked for him to be left for a possible recall. When Juan said that it wasn't surprising to him that Sarah was saying these things, I would have totally asked to elaborate. I would have said, why is it not surprising? Either for the state or the defense, there could have been a way to help either side, but I felt like since the state had called him that there was a potential to get more information on Sarah's character, and they just didn't even try. So they talked a lot about the history of alcohol with the two of them, and how originally Sarah said they only drank a certain amount, but we've learned that it was a lot more. And even if she said a bottle of wine, a larger bottle of wine, but there was multiple of them. So we do know that plays into this entire scenario. They had called their neighbors to come testify. Two gentlemen that their apartment was literally connected by a thin wall to their apartment. And that really set forward the motion that the state's going to be taking. They absolutely believe, and so did the neighbors, they believe that he fell down the stairs in the suitcase or something, but in some sort of capacity, something went down those stairs, and it had to be heavy enough that it shook their entire apartment, and, pictures on the walls, everything. They had never heard anything like that before, and one of the neighbors said they basically heard them arguing every day. So this was a huge change, and that night was a huge change. So it wasn't a huge surprise to me that Brian Boone was called. That is Sarah's ex-husband. And it seems like for the many years of her being with George, that he was kind of somebody she fell back on a lot. I think he maybe feels bad for her. She has lost both of her parents. There doesn't seem to be any extended family in her life. We do now know that her other brother is in prison for a very long time. If you haven't seen why, I will post the link in the description, but he's a bad guy. And then we do know that there is another brother who seems to be doing well for himself. He has military background, and I think he is staying far, far away from this case, and I don't blame him. So yeah, I think that is why Brian steps up or allows certain things to happen. Also, they share a child together, and I'm sure that's a huge motivation. You don't really want anything bad to happen to your kid's mom or dad. At least most people don't. And so I think he just is doing what he can do without getting too involved. But that morning, when she found out that he was still in the suitcase, he was the first one she called. He got there and told her to call the police, so he was the first one on site. So it was pretty obvious that not only would he get interviews at that time, but that he would be called in for questioning at the trial. But this is also where I think a huge mistake was made by the state. And I'm curious to know everyone else's thoughts, but so we have footage going back of the day that the police were called and went there. Brian had several different lines of questioning with the police. And in one of them, that's only an audio recording, he specifically talked about how Sarah can be abusive when she's drinking.
What can you tell me about her?
I don't, she's generally not, she can get a bit violent when she drinks. Not to this kind of extent.
I can't figure out why the state wouldn't play that, wouldn't talk to him about that, anything. They weren't saying really that they were gonna have him be recalled. Seems like they were done with him, but that was huge for their case. You have it on audio record that when she drinks, she gets violent, by her ex-husband's own words. I just don't get it. Let me know what you guys think, because I was shocked when they ended questioning with him. So then we got to watch several policemen as well as detectives come in and take the stand and testify what they witnessed or collected about this entire situation. We got to see pictures of their apartment that day, the entryway, the kitchen. They got pictures of the stairs, and you can see the stairs are flush with that wall where their neighbors live on the other side. So the neighbors talking about how they heard it. It all makes sense that they could hear it. It's literally up against their apartment. And then one of the bigger moments of this entire day was them bringing in the suitcase, the actual suitcase that he was in. And originally, they had said that this suitcase they had in the living room because they were planning on donating it, but they had things inside of it. And that was the first time I had learned that detail. They had taken pictures of the items that were also inside of there with George. It makes me question if the suitcase was actually in the living room for donation since it wasn't cleaned out, or if the state's little puzzle piecing together that maybe it was upstairs and he went in it and she did that and shoved him down the stairs. I mean, I could see that too, because if it was ready to go for donation, there were like paperwork bills, there were just random things. It would have been cleared out. So then it shows the detective trying to unzip the zipper. It's missing the pull handle, so it is hard even for someone on the outside to try to get it and open it. I'm watching her open this, and she has it in front of her as she's trying to maneuver it. I just can't believe how small it is. Sarah's defense attorney said it was a heavier piece of luggage, and I'm not saying anything about the weight, but when you put an adult human sitting in front of it, just even unzipping it, it's hard to imagine an adult male being in there. I know both of them were really underweight, and I believe George was like 5'5", 5'6" max. He was shorter, he was smaller, but it's still painful just to see the actual size in front of another human showing you this stuff. It's awful. There was one more thing that I just want to bring up, and it's not that big of a deal. I just didn't like it, so I'm just going to share. And that is learning that Sarah went to one of her neighbors and telling him to be quiet about if he ever heard them fighting or arguing. And he specifically said that she leaned in and put her finger up to her mouth saying, "Shh, don't tell anybody." Well, first of all, they don't have to tell anybody. Everybody knows. Everyone around them can hear and see what's going on. She called the police 1,000,000 times a day, so I don't even understand her bothering to tell her neighbor that. I also think it puts people in a very bad predicament. I mean, if you hear fighting to the extent that it was getting for these two, when do you step in to help? I mean, it's beyond you get in trouble and go to jail for a night. Somebody died because of this. And Obviously, I think if they would have known the severity, they would have called the police, not listened to Sarah. But it just bothers me that she even had the forethought to make those comments to other people so she wouldn't get in trouble. So we don't know who else is getting called to the witness stand tomorrow because we're back in court tomorrow. But I don't think she'll have any type of family members be called. Like, I don't think her one brother that's doing good will be there. And it seems like they're really just going to go with footage and audio from the police, George's cell phone and Sarah's cell phone, and make the case from there of trying to piece together whether she has the abused wife syndrome or whether she doesn't and she was just drinking and neglectful. I do predict that one person will be taking the stand, and I could be totally wrong. But I think with George going through like different types of recovery programs and different things for the abusiveness, he had met a social worker who was helping him stay on task and do different things. And she would even reach out and talk to Sarah about these different things. And I wouldn't be surprised if the defense ends up calling her, because that kind of sets a middle ground person who isn't trying to necessarily take sides and can look at it objectively. But we will see. We'll see how important that person ends up being or not being to this case. And I could see it almost being only for Sarah's defense may be helpful. But I don't know. I thought that both parties could have done more with the witnesses that were there the other day. And I just don't think they did. So I'm going to wrap this up. We'll definitely be back at it tomorrow. And if people don't understand why the picture for the thumbnail of my video is the other day, she had requested to have snacks during court and she was denied, and it was pretty funny. The judge said, no, you can't do that. Nobody else gets special privilege, Sarah, so you don't get to have snacks. She has definitely tried to wiggle her way in and getting everything she can. I mean, 9 lawyers later. So just the even simple request of that is funny to me. I think very soon she's going to realize she made a mistake not taking that plea deal, because the jury is going to listen to everything. I think she's going to get the max. We know that the minimum is 22 years in prison, but I just don't see how they could convict her up to a certain level and just not all the way.